All right, welcome. This is DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. Guys, we have a lot to get into today. So I was wrong yesterday. Odell Beckham Jr. had not yet gone unclaimed, but as of today, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Odell Beckham Jr. has gone unclaimed off the waiver wire. So what does that mean? Well, that means that Odell Beckham Jr. is free to sign wherever he wishes. There were reports that he's eyeing the Green Bay Packers. You know what I have to say about Odell Beckham Jr. and the reports or any team, any message to any team that's thinking of signing Odell Beckham Jr. They shouldn't do it. Honestly, in my opinion, there is no team in the NFL that needs Odell Beckham Jr. In my opinion, and I'll tell you why. He hasn't really been relevant since 2016, and he's causing issues. He's causing issues already. He caused issues to get out of Cleveland. A couple days before he got out. He caused issues. His dad posted that video of the amount of times that he got opened after the fact that Cleveland asked him to stay home. So it was like, they had already had every indication of releasing him. So why you needed to go and post a video, complaining about how many times your son gets open on the field and Baker Mayfield just doesn't find him. It didn't need to happen. And so that's the kind of point that I want to address and emphasize is you don't know if you're going to get the relevant Odell Beckham Jr. You don't know if you're going to get that player that was in New York for the New York Giants. And if history tells us anything truthful, it would be that you're not going to get the Odell Beckham Jr. that you had, from when he was on the Giants. You're just not. It's been 5 years since he's put up a phenomenal Odell Beckham Jr. type of season, and he's done nothing but obviously, as we know, complain and things like that on the back end about him not getting as many touches as he should get. So, to any Eagles fan out there who thinks that it's a good idea to bring in Odell Beckham Jr., I don't want to bring in Odell Beckham Jr. I don't think it's a good idea. I think I would rather see Devontae Smith continue to develop, Devontae Smith continue to get the ball. I think that Nick Sirianni needs to continue to develop in how he can get Quez Watkins the ball. I think that they still need to find something that they can do for Jalen Reagor. I still think that despite me saying that I don't like Jalen Reagor and I don't think he's going to actually live up to his expectations of being a first-round pick, I still think that he can be useful. I still think that Jalen Reagor can be a decent utility player, and we saw that against Detroit before he went out with the injury. Is on that first drive, he had about three end-around carries for a decent amount of yards. And that's the thing is, maybe Jalen Reagor is best used as a package player, not as a player who's not a player who's gonna start in the slot for you all the time, because that's certainly not what he's been able to do. He hasn't been able to stay on the field. He hasn't been able to get open. He hasn't been able to be productive whatsoever. He hasn't been able to show any signs of developing into a productive player. So, I mean, let's, but with that said, I don't think that the Eagles pursuing Odell Beckham Jr. is a good idea. I don't think it's a reasonable idea. And I don't think it's going to be a move that would help the franchise moving forward. If anything that we know about Odell Beckham Jr. is that he has caused some issues when it came to the locker room, and continues to do that. And I'd rather see Nick Sirianni get better as a head coach. And honestly, I think the opportunity is bigger for Nick Sirianni to get better as a head coach if he can continue to develop players like Devontae Smith, players like Quez Watkins, players like Jalen Reagor, players like Kenny Gainwell, players like Miles Sanders, continuing to find ways to use Jordan Howard. Reason being is because those are all young players in their development, and when players are young in their development, it gives you more opportunity for adversity, and adversity breeds development. Adversity breeds development. That's what I think. So, with that said, though, I mean, as far as the Odell Beckham Jr. thing, I mean, Darius Slay, star cornerback for the Philadelphia Eagles, obviously, Darius Slay did try to recruit him to Philadelphia on Twitter. Whether or not we're going to make a big deal of that, I'm not really going to. But obviously, we know that Darius Slay has tried to recruit some guys before, and players like Darius Slay around the league, and so but I just don't think it's a move that Howie Roseman needs to make. I don't think it's a move that we should want Howie Roseman to make. I'd rather see how they continue with these players moving forward. So let's get into some other topics as well. Obviously the Pittsburgh Steelers played the Chicago Bears last night. And Justin Fields looked okay. He looked okay. He didn't come out swinging or anything like that. It wasn't that impressive, but it was okay for a rookie quarterback. It wasn't the best performance in the world, but and obviously the Steelers came out and won that game. So it was a decent Monday night game to watch. But the Steelers got a W as expected. So I want to continue to talk about this team, and I want to continue to talk about this team in the sense that, obviously there's some huge holes. There's some huge holes. Obviously, you have, you have so many holes on defense. I mean, the defensive line, guys, no matter how many times that we want to say they're just not playing well this season, they're just not. They're just playing horribly. I mean, each individual player is, and yeah, you can kind of make the case for them by saying, oh, well, they're playing out of position in this new scheme with Jonathan Gannon, and it's like, yeah, but you can't tell me that Fletcher Cox has completely forgotten how to get off a block. You can't tell me that Javon Hargrave has completely forgotten how to get off a block, or Josh Sweat, or Derek Barnett. And speaking of Derek Barnett, I mean, they have to move on from Derek Barnett. They have to move on from Derek Barnett. He's just, he has more offsides penalties this season than he does sacks, and I believe he only has one. Sack. So, and that's just not enough. It's just not enough out of your defensive line. It's just not. I mean, honestly, it's like they spend so much time in the offseason trying to address the defensive line to make sure that it is productive. It is one of the better units on the team, because we know how much Howie Roseman loves to say every single offseason, well, the games are won and lost in the trenches. And lo and behold, what are the two trenches? If you were to identify your trenches, obviously your offensive line and your defensive line. Now, the defensive line trench is obviously the one that's going to set you up for success for defensively in any game that you play. But issue is that nobody's playing well. And it just seems like they just don't want to play. Honestly, it's getting to that point where it seems like they just don't want to play. Fletcher Cox, is having a horrible season, and Javon Hargrave started off hot, but hasn't had a sack in a month. Josh Sweat had a couple good sacks against the Detroit Lions, and Derek Barnett even had a sack against the Detroit Lions. Hassan Ridgeway had a sack against the Detroit Lions. Milton Williams had a sack against the Detroit Lions. In my opinion, I think that these players, these older players along the defensive line, are just running out of steam. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like I've pondered this over the last few years about Fletcher Cox. It's like he is not Aaron Donald. He was at one point ranked second to Aaron Donald, but he's never been Aaron Donald. And I don't think he's ever been close to Aaron Donald. Now that I think about it, I mean, it's Aaron Donald is phenomenal in all phases of the game when it comes to being a defensive lineman. And they can line Aaron Donald up all over the defensive line. And you don't hear Aaron Donald complaining about his use, and how they use him. But Fletcher Cox, the dude can't even get off a block. The dude can't even get off a block this season. So, and I go back to the trade deadline, and I go back to the trade deadline, and I'll say this, is they tried to move Fletcher Cox. They tried to make that move happen. Once Von Miller got traded, then the Eagles upped their price for Fletcher Cox. So is he still worth it to a different team? Probably. There's probably a team that can still get some use out of Fletcher Cox. But honestly, there are some days where I just think that this team has there are players on this team, leaders on this team that have already given up on the season because we're 3-6. I mean, let's be honest, we're 3-6. And you know what that means? It means that if the leaders are giving up, you're not really being a leader. And here's the thing too, is like, this is strictly about Fletcher Cox. I said this earlier in the year when Brandon Graham went down, we needed him to step up as a leader. And you don't really hear about Fletcher Cox being that leadership type of guy. Yeah, does he play well? Has he played well throughout his career? Yeah. But he's not the ooh-rah-rah. He's not the rah-rah guy. He's not the ooh-rah-rah type of guy. And obviously everybody was upset about the fact that Brandon Graham went down earlier this season. And obviously Fletcher Cox came out and said, it's going to be tough because he's my locker mate. He's my best bud, like da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, well, that shouldn't insinuate that you're going to have a bad season, Fletcher Cox. And maybe it does. Maybe it does. Maybe without Brandon Graham playing right next to him, he's having some issues. And, if that's the case, if you can't perform in the absence of, then there's some issues. And obviously he's getting old, so I mean, I was for trading him at the trade deadline. They didn't get it to happen. And I honestly believe that he's gonna get traded in the offseason. There's gonna be quite a few players who go in the offseason once that time, once we get there. But for now it's, why don't you just put up your best fight? Just put up your best fight. Because for most of the veterans on this squad this year, it is most likely going to be your last year as a Philadelphia Eagle, because clearly the Philadelphia Eagles are going into a youth revolt or a youth movement. So like, if you care to play for the city, if you've ever cared to play for the city, why don't you just put up your last fight and think that it's going to be your last fight? And that's how they should go in every single game, is they should play their butts off, because they really have nothing to lose. You know what I mean? They have nothing to lose. And honestly, they have nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose. But just checking in with you guys. This is DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. I'm really curious as to where Odell Beckham Jr. is going to go. Really curious as to where Odell Beckham Jr. is going to go. Obviously, he's unclaimed. The Eagles also made minor moves today. They kind of waived Matt McCain, I think his name is, defensive back, and they brought back Craig James to the practice squad. They protected John Hightower. They protected LaRaven Clark and a couple other players. So, so those are just the kind of the minor moves that the Philadelphia Eagles made today. But kind of just on here having an open discussion. What the Eagles need to do to improve on defense. Well, I hope that they address defense early in the draft. Honestly, I really do. I really, really do. Kyle Hamilton, safety out of Notre Dame, is a guy that I really, really like. He's a top 7 guy. He's that good. He's a safety that is that good coming into the draft in the offseason. So if the Eagles can get their hands on him, I mean, that would be absolutely stellar. It would be incredible. On the defensive end out of Oregon, Thibodeau or whatever his name is. If the Miami Dolphins pick ends up being 2 or 3, if I were the Eagles, I would make a move to try and make sure that I can secure that pass rusher out of Oregon. So, but who knows what they're going to do? Who knows what they're going to do? But the thing is that, Howie Roseman is probably going to be back next year, and he probably is going to be the one to pick to make those 3 first-round picks. And so as far as any worry or concern or any wishful thinking, Howie Roseman is not going to be back next year. It doesn't even look like it's going in that direction. Yeah, there was some speculation this past offseason about possibly him leaving, but obviously, as we know, Doug Peterson took the fall. So usually when that happens, usually your GM is usually one to go as well as followed. But no. Howie Roseman played the scapegoat game like he usually does and got rid of Doug and got rid of Carson. And saved his butt. And he's probably going to continue to do the same thing. But, I'm not one of those ones who jumps on the let's get rid of Howie Roseman bandwagon, all the time. You know what I mean? He's actually done a really, really good job throughout this offseason. And, clearing cap space, coming back all the way from -$7 million in the cap, things like that. And now I still believe that we're second ranked right now. We're ranked second as far as cap space is concerned in the league. So it's pretty impressive. It's pretty freaking impressive. Pretty impressive. But what a close game last night's game came out to be. 29-27. Incredible. The other thing I want to talk about too is just how great, how surprising the Cardinals are playing. I expected them to be really, really good, obviously, this season with Kyler Murray and all the offseason additions that they've made. But I mean, even with Kyler Murray out with his ankle injury right now, he should be back in about a week or two. But I mean, on Sunday with Colt McCoy playing, they still didn't miss a beat. So, and James Conner obviously went off. Toxic Falcons, what's up, my man? Welcome to the chat. Happy Tuesday, my man. Odell Beckham Jr. goes unclaimed. He is free to sign with anyone that he so pleases. But I don't think it's a good idea for any of these teams to sign Odell Beckham Jr. I really don't. I think the reason to worry is much larger than what he's going to bring to your team. So, some people want to say New England Patriots, the Bill Belichick should go out and get him, and Green Bay should go out and grab him, and all these other teams. I don't even think it's a good idea for Belichick. I don't even think it's a good idea for Belichick to go out and grab this guy. Toxic Falcon says he might go to the Packers. Well, I saw I saw a report that he is eyeing the Packers. I don't know if the Packers feel the same way. And again, I don't think that the Packers need to get Odell Beckham Jr. You know, as far as we're concerned, Odell Beckham Jr. brings nothing but drama. Like, he hasn't been relevant on field since 2016. You know what I mean? So, yeah, the Packers don't really need him. You know, the Lions were one of the teams that actually needed him because they're down wide receivers. They have no playmakers, but the Lions came out and said before he even hit waivers is that they weren't going to do it. Dan Campbell pretty much came out and said that. And obviously, as we know, nobody put in a claim for him. So it doesn't look like anybody's in any rush to go grab Odell Beckham Jr. You know? So, Doc Falcon says he brings drama. Yeah. He brings nothing but drama. It's been nothing but drama. And he's a player that complains if he doesn't get the ball, even when the team is winning. You know what I mean? And that's not something that you want. You know? T.O. didn't even really do that. T.O. didn't do that sort of thing. You know, as long as the team was winning, you know, then everything was going to be okay. And the thing that T.O. was known for is just his, you know, whenever he made a play, he said, you know, he would be way too braggadocious about it. Fox Falcon says he's trying to play with a Super Bowl contender team. Well, here's the thing. Though, with that is that why would a Super Bowl contending team need Odell Beckham Jr. if they're already a Super Bowl contending team? Like, the Packers don't need him. You know, the Cardinals don't need him. You know, and there's, I mean, technically, what does he bring? What does he bring? Tox Falcon says, I could see him going to the Chiefs. No, I don't even think that. No, Andy Reid wouldn't put up with that with Odell Beckham Jr. Andy Reid would not put up with Odell Beckham Jr. Andy Reid is not about that. Andy Reid is not about that. Andy Reid is about high morale players, good, decent players. No, he's not going to put up with him. He's not going to put up with a crybaby like Odell Beckham Jr. And here's the thing too, is like, his dad didn't need to put out that video. He was asked to stay home by the Cleveland Browns organization before his dad put out that video. You know what I mean? So, like, that didn't even need to happen. And that just goes to show you right there what you're going to be dealing with. Toxic Falcon says they need some players. They need some defensive players. But unfortunately, Odell Beckham Jr. doesn't play defense. Same thing with the Seahawks. Like, a lot of people are thinking that the Seahawks should go after Odell. Seahawks don't need to go after Odell. They have Tyler Lockett and they have DK Metcalf. The one thing that the Seahawks do need is they do need some defensive players. You know, I will make the argument that Odell is a bad move for every single team in the NFL. It's not a need. He hasn't brought what we've seen him capable of bringing in 5 years. You know, he's been injured. He's been difficult to deal with. You know, I don't know what I mean, it's not like the Eagles. It's not like the Eagles trading for T.O. You know, T.O. actually produced on the field. You know, before the 49ers traded T.O. to the Eagles back in 2004. Like, you know, I mean, you could kind of make the case that it's a Randy Moss situation, you know, where you know, Randy Moss absolutely hated being in Oakland. You know, he had some of the worst seasons of his career in Oakland until he was traded to to the Patriots and needed just another fresh start. But again, that's Randy Moss. That's Randy Moss. We're talking about Odell Beckham Jr. Tox Falcon says, I don't see OBJ going to the trash team, though he could go to the Saints. No. Sean Payton already said no. Sean Payton already said no. So he's not going to the Saints. You know, that's the thing, is every single team is being asked about him, you know, whether or not they're going to go after him. And so pretty much each head coach in the NFL has had the opportunity to address the topic in a press conference this week. You know, obviously there's Nick Sirianni, and Nick Sirianni was questioned about it. And Nick Sirianni pretty much just said, you know, we're always looking for opportunities to improve our team, but he likes the young players that they have. So I don't think Odell Beckham Jr. is going to get what he wants in the end. You know, and he hasn't changed. He hasn't changed as much as not every team. The Falcons don't get no one good. I don't even think. But here's my point: is I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea for any of these NFL teams to go after Odell Beckham Jr. Like, I just don't see the advantages of signing this player. You know, I just don't see it. I really just don't. And I don't want him on my team because I think he will interfere with the development of some of these other wide receivers. So Toxic Falcons says, okay, what about the 49ers? Toxic Falcons, like I said, I don't think it's an advantage for any NFL team. Not even the 49ers. The 49ers have Deebo Samuel. 49ers have some guys. 49ers have some guys. You know what I mean? Okay, let's say this. Could Odell bring money to an organization? Could Odell bring money to an organization? Yeah, he could. He could. But here's the thing. Again, he could bring money to an organization even more so if it were the Odell of old. You know? So, you know, does he actually bring as much excitement as he used to? No, he doesn't. He doesn't even do that. And if he continues his antics, which there's no proof of him discontinuing his antics, I believe that the team is gonna you know, make as much sales as they normally do. You know, do I expect and if we're talking about, you know, there's many different sales departments in, you know, when you own a franchise. One of them obviously is, you know, concession sales, you know, ticket sales, jersey sales, things like that. Do I think that fans of a team are going to go out and start buying Odell Beckham Jr. jerseys right away? No, I don't. I think that there might be some fans who are so obsessed with Odell Beckham Jr. unjustifiably, you know, still from his days in his play when he was a New York Giant, that they'll be like, oh, really cool jersey to go and grab. That's a really cool jersey to go and buy. I gotta go have that limited Odell Beckham Jr. jersey because he's only going to be on the 49ers for 1 year. And so, like, it would be really cool to grab that one. Or he's going to be on the Eagles for 1 year, or he's going to be on the Patriots for 1 year, which none of those things are going to happen. The 49ers don't need him. I don't think the Eagles need him. And the Patriots certainly don't need him. You know, Bill Belichick shouldn't make that move. There is room to make an argument that that could be something Bill Belichick does, but they don't need to do it. They don't need to because it could screw up Mac Jones' development, and I don't think that Bill Belichick wants to do that. I think that there's too many red flags when it comes to Odell Beckham Jr., where it's giving people cause to pause. You know what I mean? So no, just I don't. That's why I say it's like he's not. Talks Falcon says so. He is just another AB, and I was just about to go here. No, he's not even just another AB. He's not, because Antonio Brown wasn't like that when he started his career, you know, and Antonio Brown actually showed, you know, evidence of improving and evidence of developing and evidence of wanting to be better, evidence of wanting to get help, evidence of wanting to get better off the field. You know, he's not just another AB. He's not just another AB. So AB was signed by the Patriots and was okay with them, and then obviously was discontinued because of the off-field suspension. And then the following season, Tom Brady went to the Buccaneers, but AB had talked to a lot of people. AB had shown a lot of things. AB had given interviews about how he's doing better and was doing better. And so there was reason to have faith in Antonio Brown. Odell Beckham Jr. has not shown signs that he has changed at all. So Talks Falcon says, and your thoughts on the refs for the Bears versus Steelers game? I didn't see the game. I just followed it online, but you know, obviously I had work yesterday and some other things to do, so I didn't actually see that game. But I can tell you this is I have not agreed with a lot of the calls that some of the refs have made. If you're talking about the taunting call that was called on linebacker Cassius Marsh for the Chicago Bears, yeah, it didn't look like he was taunting. You know what I mean? I believe him when he says that he wasn't taunting. You know, that's the thing, is like that new taunting rule is kind of ridiculous, in my opinion. That new taunting rule, I think it's kind of ridiculous. And so, like, but it's also one of those ones that kind of come in the moment. And so, you know, if you actually weren't, if Cassius Marsh was actually, I believe his name's Cassius Marsh, the linebacker, you know, if he was taunting, I mean, if he was taunting, I don't think he would go out of his way to say I'm not taunting. But, you know, but because he actually wasn't taunting, you know, it makes sense for him to go out of his way because it was a big penalty. And yeah. Talk to Falcon says refs nowadays suck. Yeah. I mean, even in the Eagles Chargers game, like the Eagles were at home and there was some mismanagement when it came to the clock too, towards the very end. So, yeah, I can't tell you, you know, how much veteran experience is in the ref room these days, but, you know, just because I don't have that information available or accessible to me or in front of me or whatsoever, but I can tell you that they need to, you know, they there's some things. There's obviously new rules every single season, right? For the refs to adhere by and adjust to. So they do have a tough job, and Nick Sirianni says this all the time and after each one of his games is the refs have a tough job, just like we all do, and da 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 da. So I agree with that. I mean, the refs really do have a tough job. They got to pay attention to every single little detail that's going on in front of them throughout the game, and they got to and when they're about to make a call, they got to make sure that they had laser focus, on that play that they're making a call on, because if they don't, then then it could go either way, and if they choose the wrong way, it could be the cost of a game for a team, so it's like their jobs are incredibly hard, but I do agree that they could do better. I do agree that we've seen, over the past 20 years, seen some incredible referees, with incredible experience. And, but yeah, no, so far this season, I have not had a lot of fun. When it comes to the refs. Just haven't had fun. You know what I'm saying? Talks Falcons. Other Eagles updates, by the way, is that they could get one of their star offensive linemen back either this week or maybe next week. Brandon Brooks was placed on the IR for 8 weeks and should be coming back soon. That would be huge for the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. But they've been playing well without Brandon Brooks. So Brandon Brooks is another guy that I'll throw in there as a veteran along the offensive line that could get moved in the offseason. Would they do that? I don't know. He's about 33 now, but and does have kind of a decent cap hit. But I mean, this team is dead set on getting younger and making sure that they develop these younger guys, really going with this youth movement. So that could be one of the moves that they do make. We'll see. We'll see moving forward. But Doc Falcon says, yeah, definitely when it comes to refs. Doc Falcon says, do you see the Eagles winning Sunday? It's really tough. And I'll tell you why it's really, really tough. Because Teddy Bridgewater has played decent, this season. He's played well. And that Broncos defense, pretty much just shut down Dak Prescott and that offense. And Vic Fangio is a good defensive mind, man. He's a really good defensive mind. And so, I could see them figuring out a way to really confuse Jalen Hurts. And I could see them finding a way to do that, plus stop our ground game, which our ground game is strong. Our ground game is really strong. So, but one of these teams is going to figure out how to stop it. But then again, like the Broncos have Melvin Gordon. They have running back Melvin Gordon. And then they also have the other dude that I can't think of his name, but just running back Melvin Gordon, and then Teddy Bridgewater, getting his completions here and there, up and down the field will be enough for the Broncos to win. So I'm worried that we're going to give up another high completion percentage game to a quarterback, and that quarterback is going to be Teddy Bridgewater. And I mean, I don't have any faith in this defense. I really don't. There are some players that I have faith in the development, like TJ Edwards. I think continues to get better. He's still like an average linebacker, but there's cause for pause. Doxley Falcon says, mostly the rest of your games are division games, so you could still make the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, technically we could. But I think it starts with a win over the Denver Broncos. It does. It does. So I think here's what I'll say about that, though, is that somehow the Washington football team always plays tough against the Eagles and does well against them, which is one of the things that I'm worried about. That's just one of the things I can't come out and say that the Eagles are going to sweep the Washington football team. And then again, you have the Giants, who are playing much better over the last 2 weeks. They did really well against the Chiefs a couple weeks ago, and then they just beat the Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders absolutely destroyed the Philadelphia Eagles. So if you go by that logic, the New York Giants should crush the Eagles. So here's the thing. I mean, the Eagles stink. They have a lot that they need to improve, and some of their players on offense are developing. Nick Sirianni as a head coach is developing, getting better. And I hope that continues. But, obviously before the Chargers game, I was saying how there's 9 games left and three of these games look like losses. And I included the Chargers game in that. But, after seeing the fact that, since I said that, I've come and I've said that, the Eagles could go 6-3 the rest of the way. They really could. There's a possibility for that. But it's hard to see that now because the defense didn't even put up a fight. I mean, they barely, the reason why they were able to, hold the Chargers down for most of the first half is because Brandon Staley was going for it on 4th down every single time. You know what I mean? So Dr. Falcon says the Saints game will be a tough game too. And that's one of the ones that I counted as a loss. It was the Chargers, the Saints, and the Cowboys. But now after seeing, how the Giants are playing over these last 2 weeks, it gives me reason to doubt. It gives me reason to doubt. So, but is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. It's possible that the Eagles could still make the playoffs. Technically, the Falcons are in the playoffs right now, and I hope you knew that. Tax Falcons. The Falcons have that last wild card spot right now. So, which even Arthur Smith has gotten better. Your head coach, Arthur Smith, has gotten a lot better. So, I don't know what's going to happen. Talks Falcon says, wait, so you think the Cowboys will beat you again? Yeah. The defense hasn't gotten better since we've played the Cowboys. Yeah, I think the Cowboys will beat us again. Yeah, I do. It's too much firepower. And honestly, I've never really ever said that in a season before as an Eagles fan. I've never really ever said that I actually believe the Cowboys are going to sweep us. I can say right now, the Cowboys are probably going to sweep us. And I have no qualms about saying that. No hesitation, no contemplation, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I really do believe that the Cowboys are going to sweep us again this season. So, yeah. It's just too much. Jonathan Gannon doesn't know how to use this personnel. And also at the same time, here's the thing too. There's arguments that can be made for Jonathan Gannon trying to be better. Jonathan Gannon has, this is the one thing talks Falcons that Eagles fans just like they let their emotions get so far ahead of them that they actually get clouded about the thinking. But it's like fans come out and say, well, why don't you try this? Well, why don't you try that? Well, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? It's like Jonathan Gannon has come out and tried different things. He has. It's not being executed, which means that there is an argument that could be made that it's not just Jonathan Gannon. The guy doesn't have the personnel to execute the defense to the utmost ability that he can executed at. And Brandon Graham going down was probably a huge piece of that, you know? So, like, but then again, like, your defense shouldn't fall apart based off of losing one player for the season. Honestly. And I don't think it is, but I'm just saying that, you know, there's reason for it. I mean, like, yeah, Brandon Graham going down was huge, but, you know, it shouldn't be the end all be all of your defense. And I don't think that the Eagles have the personnel. You know, I will blame Jonathan Gannon sometimes, but I'm not like the other fans that will completely shit on him, and just say, oh, you gotta, you know, you're horrible. We're gonna throw things. You gotta go. Blah 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 blah. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. The dude doesn't have the personnel to run his scheme. You know, he needs a pass rusher. You know, he needs some bigger linebackers to stop the run. You know, and he doesn't have that. He has T.J. Edwards, who's huge, by the way, and Davion Taylor, who's like 6'2", 223, maybe even less than that. So, you know, he doesn't have the personnel. Has he been bad? Has he been bad? Yeah, he's been bad. Like him using Josh Sweat out of position, that's not something that you should do. You should, like, that you can blame on Jonathan Gannon, using players out of position. Like, there is reason to blame Jonathan Gannon, but he also doesn't have the personnel that he needs to be able to execute a Tampa 2 defense, which is technically what his defense is, a Tampa 2 defense. It needs bigger linebackers, you know, that get after the quarterback. It requires your cornerbacks to play zone and your safeties to play a little bit deep. It also requires your middle linebacker to be able to cover a deep zone. So we don't have. So basically, what they need is an all-around guy. They need an all-around guy at middle linebacker. They need a Devin White. They need a C.J. Mosley. They need Luke Kuechly. They need, who's retired. They need an all-around linebacker. You know, they need a Micah Parsons. It's just facts. When you're running a Tampa 2, you like, the middle linebacker position is incredibly important, and he needs to be a all-around linebacker. Tox Falcon says, never thought I would hear you say the Cowboys will sweep the Eagles. Yeah, well, I'll say it again. The Cowboys will sweep the Eagles. It will be too much for the Eagles defense. Tox Falcon says, I will keep saying this, DB. Your defense and every other team defense is better than the Falcons. When we stop choking in the fourth, I will say differently. Okay. You guys have Alfred. I mean, I would take Alfred in a second and put him in my secondary. You guys have a couple good players. You guys have Vic Beasley still. So I would take Vic Beasley in a second. Dr. Falcon says, well, DB, you got to start drafting LSU linebackers, man. I feel like Howie just needs to be a better draft guy in general. Howie Roseman needs to be a better draft guy in general. So I mean, in a perfect world, the Eagles I would have the Eagles take safety Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame, and I would have them take one of these top linebackers in the draft, and then also a defensive lineman. That's what I would do. In the first round this year. I would go all defense. You know, and then in the second round, you can add another offensive playmaker or something. You know, but I don't know what they'll do, and I don't, you know, and I can't say what they'll do. But Tox Falcon says, so I would assume you're already ready for the next season. No. Let me be perfectly clear. I'm not ready for the next season already. No, it's going to be a knockdown, drag out fight. You know, we're going to be in it. We're going to be talking about the Eagles every single week, hoping that they can continue to get better. I said that at the beginning of the season is like this season is more likely going to be a season of development, spectating. Not about wins and losses, but more so about development, and it's becoming that. It's becoming that, and the lack thereof of the defense. So. But this is DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds. Toxic Falcons, thank you so much for joining in, my man. DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles, and any other team that you wish to talk about. Toxic Falcons, thank you so much for joining in tonight. You have a beautiful rest of your evening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and happy Tuesday, and one love, and go Birds, baby.